of my story today is Land of Mystery. And in 1919, 2 years after the revolution of Russia, when Temple of Ashgabat was completed, Baha'is of India wrote a letter to beloved Abdul Baha and requested if they can have a temple in India. From the letter that, of course, at that time, Baha'is of India were mostly some Parsis, Zoroastrians that they had, in several generations, they had escaped out of Iran from persecution of Zoroastrian. And they had gone, then many of them became Baha'is and they went to India. They are very well known in India as Parsis. Now they wrote to Abdul Baha at that time, but from his response, they understood that they have to wait. It's not that easy. In any case, India was expecting very serious events, very serious movements. Revolution happened, and then India had, in year 1947, they had their independence. And so whole things changed, years went on and on, till in 1953, in the 10 Years Crusader, same plan of beloved guardian that sent our family to desert of Lut in city of Gonabad, and I told you the story of that last week. If some of you did not hear it, it's available on the internet, and it was recorded, so you can look at that. And in that, the same plan asked for purchase of a land for the temple of India, for the Baha'i temple in India. This was the great dream of the Baha'is, but the decision was that the land would be in Delhi rather than in Bombay that original Baha'is of India had requested. Anyhow, at that time, the National Spiritual Assembly of India, Pakistan, Burma, and Ceylon was one. 4 countries had one National Assembly. And this National Assembly was really very, I mean, we could say a number of the Baha'is were very limited, and most of them were not rich. So when Guardian asked for land, and they were trying to find the land, they were trying to suggest some things, but they would get a piece of land here and there, small properties, small house here and there, and beloved Guardian would not accept it. So, and the Baha'is of India, perhaps they were thinking that Guardian does not know how poor are the Baha'is, and they just, what he's asking is beyond our imagination. But because a beloved Guardian wanted a land, beautiful, large, nice, at the center of the city, at the height, somewhere in a high level, and so on. And this Benamjan, I see only your picture on my screen. That means I am not seen on the view of the others. I think they are looking at the host only. Am I right? Or you can see me on the screen? I cannot hear you, and I can see you only on screen.
I think everybody's nodding their head that they can see you.
Okay, sorry. because I can see only you. That's which is my pleasure, by the way.
No,
Anyhow,
Fiberjob, on the upper side of the screen, there's a multiple
yes,
block.
yes. I know. I see that. Anyhow, thank you so much. So they were and the Baha'is were perhaps thinking that beloved guardian doesn't know about their condition and this and that, but beloved guardian had a different vision, and he was looking great. He was looking to the future. Eventually, after quite some time of search and all of that, suddenly they came across a property that was shockingly cheap. And it was 90,000 square meter, which is something like 240 meters by 400 meters. You can imagine how big it is, how nice. It was, of course, at the middle of nowhere. It was far from the center of the city, but it was in high level, and it was really sort of ditches and rocks and all of that. The land was like that. So they asked from the beloved guardian that and the price of the land, I told you, they were asking for only they were asking for $14,000, or at that time 140,000 rupees. 140,000 rupees. Of course, that is a big amount of money for Indians at that time, but that was equal to, I checked in Google at that time, the rate of exchange has been something near $14,000. But this land should have been, I don't know, 10 times more, 20 times more. Poor Baha'is, they are naive. They didn't know that this land is a green zone. Nobody can build anything in it. So the owner is trying to sell it and get rid of it. But they wrote to the beloved guardian, and surprisingly, guardian said, immediately buy it. He said, no further communication is needed on this subject. Just quiet and buy it, that's it. So they bought it. And then when they bought it, they immediately knew that it is a green zone. But when they bought it, they realized that the name of the land is Bahapur. Bahapur means Baha'abad, like means land, abode of Baha. That's very interesting. Now, imagine this situation remained like that for a long time. There is a piece of land. On paper, it is in the name of the Baha'is. In reality, they are not allowed to do anything in it. They had just a simple sign on a wall that says the land for the Baha'i temple. I have that photograph. And some people would go and pray to that sign. That was this. And now, let's go back 53 years. 53 years before this 1953, that guardian asked for that. 53 years ago, in 1900, in a very small village of Yazd, let me show you I hope you see the screen, I believe, yes, the map. In city of Yazd, right at the center of Iran, you can see on the left side here, this is city of Yazd. In a small village of this place, a boy was born. They called him Ardeshir and Ardeshir Rostampur, and he lost at very young age. He lost his father. Zoroastrian, he was a Zoroastrian. Zoroastrian were under serious persecution, and he had to work like a slave everywhere. And he was, in fact, working for his half brother that was different from the mother side. The brother didn't like him at all. And he and his mother, that was a deaf and dumb, they were in that village and they were working very hard and like a slave. And he's 10 years old. Now, at the age of 10, he, that means 1910, Ardashir heard that a caravan is going to go from India, from Iran, Zoroastrian, that they are escaping to India. One caravan of them is going to Bandar Abbas, and from Bandar Abbas, look at here, you can see this is Yazd, comes south, right there at the corner of the Tangier Hormuz, you have Bandar Abbas.
You're not sharing.
I asked you, I said, do you see the map? You said yes. Okay, just a minute. Let me see why I'm not sharing it. You can see the screen now. Do you see the screen?
Not yet.
I don't know what I'm doing. I pushed share a screen and it doesn't come.
Okay, now you're sharing.
Do you see now? Now you see my family, all of my children and my grandchildren. That's, some of them may be online. Anyhow, this one is, okay, now we see the city of the map, Yazd at the center of Iran, Bandar Abbas south, and then this Zoroastrian would come from there to Bandar Abbas, and from Bandar Abbas would go to India, or either Bombay or Karachi. That was at that time part of India. Anyhow, so Ardashir went to her mother and begged her mother that please let me go to with this caravan. I escape. I go and I perhaps will have a better life, and I will make some money and saving, and I will save you from this miserable life. Her mother, by sign language, told him that yes, go and really be free from this misery. So with one shirt and one handkerchief full of dry bread, he escaped and he joined the caravan that was on the way. So fortunately, by his luck, in the caravan, there were two villagers from his village that they knew him and they knew the story of his life and all of his poor condition of him. And they spoke to others. They spoke to everyone. And among those people, there was a rich Zoroastrian lady, young lady, that was going to Bandar Abbas to get married to another Zoroastrian in Bandar Abbas. So this lady needed somebody to help her with running, doing something for her, get this, do that. And she felt so sad for this young boy, 10 years old, and gave him some small money, and he would work for him as his servant. And they came till Bandar Abbas, and in Bandar Abbas, he was so, this lady said goodbye, but she was so impressed by this young boy, his sincerity and all of that. She gave her some money so that she can afford to pay for a boat to go to Karachi. You can see here, right? Continue the Gulf of Oman, and you will see Karachi. This one is the first one, is Karachi. Karachi is now a part of Pakistan. At that time, there was no Pakistan. It was India, all India. This is British time. So he came there. Eventually, and he was doing everything, from washing the floor everywhere, to work like as a slave, really. After a few short period of time, from Karachi, he went to Bombay, that most of the Zoroastrian live there. And so he was in Bombay, that you see in this map. And after some time from Bombay, he traveled back to Hyderabad. This is Hyderabad of the Sindh. There is another Hyderabad at the center of India. That is a different Hyderabad. This is Hyderabad of Sindh. So he was here. He started a very small coffee shop. He called it Britannia Restaurant. And for years and years and years, he worked there till end of his life. He lived there, and he died in the same restaurant. Eventually, everything was there. He was there. Many British soldiers that they would travel between Pakistan and India and Delhi, between Karachi and Delhi. You see Delhi at the north of India there. That is city of Delhi. They were crossing through Hyderabad, and they were passed through restaurant of this Ardeshir Rostampur. Mr. Faizi was very fond of Ardeshir. Knew him at that time. He was a young man. He was a pahlavan. You know, the Persians, they know what is pahlavan. The one that in Zurkhane, they have meals that they carry and all of that. And they are famous for, to show their power, they tear off their chair as a copper tray. So he would tear the tray. He was a very strong man. And that was Mr. Faizi, that was himself a pahlavan. He loved that sport. He always talked about him, and he loved him very much. Of course, Mr. Faizi knew him when he became Baha'i, but now he's not still a Baha'i. He works there in his restaurant, and he's a young man. And all of what he does, all of his life, he works. He sends everything that he gets to his mother, other than to help his business, to his mother, to the Zoroastrian in Yazd, and 8 of widows, old ladies that they were suffering. He was fully supporting. He financed a bath, public bath, because they were not allowing Zoroastrian to go to the public bath with Muslims. So he built a special place for a special bath that had a separate bath for Muslims, separate for Zoroastrian, separate entrance for Muslims, separate entrance for Zoroastrian, and all of that, and eventually brought gas to that place so that they can have hot water. And then eventually he also built a water tank, reservoir, and many good things. He did many good things for the Zoroastrian. He was working there. And he was in this coffee shop, and many Baha'i teachers also would travel to this place and would stay in his restaurant. That it seems at that time there were very, very few clean places, and this was one of them. So many of these Baha'i teachers stayed there. And eventually, our dear Miss Martarut also was traveling to that place, stayed in this restaurant, and stayed a few nights in that restaurant. Ardeshir kept the room of Miss Martarut till end of his life as a museum, and kept all of her photographs and all of these things. And he was so much in love with Miss Martarut, and he became a Baha'i. And from then on, all of his money he contributed to the faith, because also his mother had passed away. He never could bring his mother, because his mother was with his relatives and all of that. One day, Ardeshir heard that 2 members of the National Spiritual Assembly of India from Delhi are going to travel to Karachi, to Hyderabad, and they are going to stay in his hotel, in his restaurant. Restaurant and mehman khane, you know that those days any coffee shop had a couple of rooms that you could stay there. Alternative was mosque, stay in mosque. But anyhow, so, and also understood that some of the members of the spiritual assembly of local spiritual assembly of Hyderabad also are going to come. So they are going to meet and discuss. So he was serving them coffee and tea, and he understood from the discussion that the there is a piece of land that beloved guardian want to buy for the temple and all of that, and they don't have money. And he just asked them, what is that? What do you want? And all of that. What is your goal? What do you want? They said that their plan is to get 15,000 rupees out of that 140,000 rupees, the total cost, from state of Sindh, where Hyderabad is in Sindh. So that was their goal. He understood that beloved guardian has asked that this land should be bought immediately, and this is very urgent, and so on. So he asked them to stand up, and from the bench that they were sitting on it, he took all of his papers and documents and ownership and everything that he had. He put it on the table and told them to count it, see what it is. They count everything, and they found that they have said there were the two members of the National Assembly of India were Isfandiar Bakhtiyari and Abbas Qoli Bhat. Both of them are very famous at that time. They were very devoted Baha'is, and for years and years they were members of the National Assembly till end of their life. So they were there, and they counted everything. It was 100,000 and 190 rupees. 100,000 and 190 rupees, including the cash in box in his. So they begged him, for God's sake, keep some money. You need this. He said, all of this yours. Take it. They said, Baba, you need some money. You need some. Tomorrow you have expenses. You want to buy coffee. You want to buy something. He said, you know, when I came here in this country, I didn't have anything. I came with one handkerchief full of dry bread. Baha'u'llah gave me all the things that I have. And now Baha'u'llah needs this money. Beloved guardian needs this money. If I don't give it to him and he needs it, he will take it from me. If he wants me to have this money, he will return it to me. He says that your money is yours. So take it, no problem. So they took that money and they bought that land with that money. And as I told you, they found that the name of the land, when they purchased the land and all of that, they found that the name of the land, of course, the rest of the money also came from different things, different contributions and everything that they had. But the main money was money of Ardashir. So they, when they found that the name of the land is Bahapur, it's very interesting. I searched about this. The name of Bahapur, the village of Bahapur, today that area is postal code 19, district of Bahapur. And it has been with this name for the last 400 years. 400 years ago, a Mughal prince traveled to this area, and in his history, it is written that the prince stayed in village of Bahapur. So that they had this name years and years, centuries before Baha'u'llah was born. That's very interesting. You know that Baha'u'llah in Kitab-i-Iqan says that names comes down from heaven. Also, Abdul Baha talks about this. In particular, he says in a letter to the Baha'is, he says, visit ye especially the city of Bahia, situated on the eastern shore of Brazil. City of Bahia. He says, because it is sometime that it has become known by this name, its efficacy will be most potent. So he says that the name is so important. So of course you can imagine that the name of Bahapur is for sure very important based on what Baha'u'llah and Abdul Baha they say. Really, when you think about it, of course, you know that there is a tablet of Abdul Baha. It says, این از مقتضای حضرت عشق است و باید چنین باشد. This is from this is due of Lord of love. This is due of the Lord of love, and so it must be. Really, when you think about it, which money is worthy of buying a temple land that was designated on that name for centuries, and beloved guardian wanted to have it in that place and all of that. And really, this land is, so this money was the money of love, money of whole life saving of this man, whole life saving of this man. He never married. He never, I will tell you the story of end of his life, you will see. Anyhow, we have a beautiful poem. It says, استاد کائنات که این کارخانه ساخت مقصود عشق بود جهان را بهانه ساخت. I tried translation. The sovereign Lord of creation, when he this world did frame, was moved by love, but made the world the pretext for his aim. You know, in all these years that I had honor to be at the Temple Land and work there, and I have to say, because my dear Mrs. Fatazam, that is like my mother, is on the line, I have to mention that everything of this temple, everything that I have done, all of my life, I owe to beloved Mr. Fatazam. He was my angel, he was my guide, he was my father, and I loved him so much that you cannot imagine. And all of these years that I have been at that site, I always reported everything that would have happened to him. Mr. Fatah Azam was representative of the House of Justice on this issue. Let me find out, suddenly I lost my focus and went somewhere that, yes. During this period, I had the honor of receiving some very, very distinguished people, very distinguished people. Now, the one that I prefer to talk about is Her Royal Highness Crown Prince Margareta of Romania, the great-granddaughter of Queen Marie, Romania. You can see her in this photograph, and her husband, that is a very famous architect, is on the right side of the slide. That's very interesting. I go out of the subject, forgive me. We have a beautiful museum at the temple that I designed. That was why I remembered Mr. Fatah Azam, because we built this later, this place for, so that people that they come, they have a very good idea of the Baha'i faith. In part of that, there is a VIP section, and we have a special panel that it shows Queen Marie Romania and some of her letters to the Baha'is. And royal family of Romania, they don't believe that Queen Marie was a Baha'i. They just argue that she was a very devoted Christian. So I told the princess that, do you recognize handwritten of your grandmother? She said, yes, I know. I brought her to this panel. I said, is this her handwriting? She looked at that, and you see the signature. She said, yes. I said, please read it. She read where Queen Marie says, her praises Baha'i faith and all of that. And she looked at that and she said, very interesting, very interesting. Anyhow, we went to the temple together with her husband, which is right at the middle. And she's on between her husband and me and the rest of her companions. And so, you know, many of these distinguished guests, when they come, when they see the temple at the middle of such vast green area, as if all of that is ours. None of that is ours. Baha'u'llah made that land green zone. That fellow thought that he's cheating us. He has he sold the green zone to us. We built it, we designed the temple, we did everything. And now, but when House of Justice told me, go and build the temple, I went to India. I said, what do I have to build? There is no land, there is no permit, nothing. And the government that was in charge was the government of Congress Party, Mrs. Gandhi, and they were completely, they were not allowing, because they said this area is all, as you see, all of the green that you see here, it's a green zone, it's a park, it's there, that is there. And we are sitting right at the center of that. So they were not allowing it. And they, eventually we were negotiating with this government day and night, bargaining and going back and forth and back and forth. And they would say, no, it's not possible. In fact, there was a very important person, the chairman of the Delhi Development Authority, like mayor of the city, that was called Mr. Jagmohan, very, very forceful person, known as a bulldozer. He would never accept anyone other. And they didn't have anything against the Baha'i faith. He said his dream was that he wants to build to have a green zone, and that is it. And you can see now next to it, all of these properties, how compacted they are. If this was not a green zone, all around this was like that, was like this area. So now he was not allowing us. Now suddenly, as we needed to start the construction, the government that was in power for 30 years, government of Congress Party, collapsed. And a government that was an opposition at that time, Bharatiya Janata Party, came to power. And they were, new governments are in good mood. They approved, they said, okay, we went to them and negotiated and give all of these things. And in the last meeting, the chairman that was there at that time told us that, okay, this is a green zone and this is also a flower. We allow this to grow here. So they allowed us to build only at the central part, for 2.5 acre land, we can build the temple. And so we built a temple, and all this green zone became eventually all of that, major part of that was illegally occupied by homeless people, and it became a shanty town. And it was a mess till the time that in another story, I will tell you about that one. I don't go to that part. I will go back to the story of our tonight. Anyhow, the new government gave us the permission for the land to build, and the government collapsed. And that government had only one duty, to change the zoning, that's all. In few months, they collapsed. The old government came back, but it could do nothing because already we had the permit and we did everything. And that Mr. Jagmohan, that was like mayor of the city at that time, became lieutenant governor of the city of Delhi, which is, that means like a governor, very important. And, but he couldn't do anything, in fact. Now I will tell you the story of many years later, when I met with Mr. Jagmohan later on in next future edition, future stories. You have to come back. It will be beautiful stories in future. Anyhow, and now this is the land, and we built a building and all of that. Now that land, look at the crowd of people. This is just an ordinary day. These people are waiting on the line to go to the temple. I don't know if you can imagine any temple in the world that has that kind of crowd. This is just absolute and ordinary day. These are all just ordinary Indian people. I don't know how many, maybe 5% of them are Baha'is, I don't know. Rest of them are and all of them, they come to temple, they come for prayer, they come with maximum respect. And Temple of India has become so famous that this is Prime Minister of, current Prime Minister of India, that is Mr. Narendra Modi. He is now Prime Minister from Bharatiya Janata Party, the one that was in opposition at that time, and he's the leader of a party that believes Hindustan for Hindus. They are the party that they destroyed the mosque of Ayodhya because they want to build a Hindu temple. Imagine that he is carrying the picture of the Baha'i temple in his hand in a book that he himself has published called India Soars High, Roars High, Soars High, I'm sorry. India Soars High, that means the advancement of India. And the symbol of the advancement of India is the Baha'i temple. So, and this is Independence Day of India. At the background, you see the house of, that's Foreign External Affairs Ministry, and they are coming from the house of Viceroy of British Empire or President of Israel, President of India now. This is the military that is carrying the Baha'i temple as the symbol of unity of religions. It says on the panel, but that is a different issue. I just don't want to talk it. And you can see here the stamp that the government of India has done from this monuments, the most famous monuments of India. At the center is the most famous architecture that the British designed for India by Edwin Lutyens, the godfather of British architecture. On the left side is Qutb Minar, very famous minaret of period of Mughals. At the center is British Empire, and on the right is the Temple of India as the symbol. These are the, it says this stamp is on New Delhi Diamond Jubilee. So it's something. And the temple has become such a famous, really place for these people. So imagine that, let me stop this, okay? And so you imagine that all of these people, they have a imagination. Whenever they come, they are asking me, the Princess Margareta, her husband, they ask me, Baha'is should be very rich. How you could afford this? You know, this land that they bought it at $14,000 now is worth much, much more than $14 million. I cannot put money on that. If it is $400 million, you cannot find it. You cannot find it because there is no, first of all, this land is not for sale. No land around this exists. And imagine that Baha'u'llah moved the entire city of Delhi from the north of Delhi, New Delhi, toward the temple. The temple, which was at the middle of nowhere, today is the heart of commercial heart of the city of Delhi, and really has become a place that Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi asked to consult with me about when he wanted to build a monument in the name of Mrs. Gandhi. I was talking to them. All of them, they say, how Baha'is could afford this land? How you bought this land? And do you think I can tell them the truth? I can tell them, you know, there was a boy, 10 years old boy from Yazd, and from that escaped to India and did that, and you cannot believe, they think you are crazy. They say you are lying. So I don't tell them. I don't tell them. I say, you know, all the Baha'is of the world, they sacrificed and this and that. It's like that. And also the fact, really, who paid for this money? Who paid for this temple? I mean, really imagine Baha'is of India are so poor, so poor. Those of you like Mrs. Fat Azam that have spent lifetime in India can tell you the most important problem of the community is that Baha'is don't have sufficient money to pay to the bus to come to the 19-day feast, which is only 1 rupee, which is 10 cents. Now, this is the situation. And sorry, 1 rupee is not 10 cents, it's 2 cents today. So this is, but Baha'is of India alone have contributed more than $2 million to this temple. And the cost of this temple itself, people ask me, you know, there is a temple in India called Akshidram. And they have spent about, I believe, more than $350–400 million to build that temple. And they sell ticket for you to go and see it. You go and wait on the line and buy 100 rupees ticket to go in to see the temple. When I went there to see the temple for the first time, I saw the line and I said, I don't want to buy the ticket and go there. I didn't go. I was passing, one of my companions told to the security guard that this is the architect of the Lotus Temple. In few minutes, a very distinguished lady, American lady, came out, but with Indian dress, came out and said that, oh, the chief priest of temple wants to see you. We have to start that. I went to the temple to see him. He is a PhD from Oxford University of England, but he dresses like Gandhi and all of that. I have his name and everything. He told me that you cannot believe, he was so impressed by the temple. And he was talking to me as if his temple is nothing. And God knows how many millions we have spent on this temple. And when they ask me how much is the cost of the temple, I never tell them $10 million. It's a joke, $10 million. How is it possible? It's impossible. Today, one 7-Eleven building in the United States is $10 million. Many of your houses are more than $10 million. Anyhow, that this was there, but because of that, I always tell them that, you know, that many of these services have been free, and people, of course, many people work voluntarily. So this is the situation. I cannot tell them the truth. Anyhow, Baha'u'llah himself says, the essence of wealth is love for me. Whose loveth me is the possessor of all things, and he that loveth me not is indeed of the poor and needy. The one who doesn't love me is indeed poor of needy. Now, anyhow, up to end of his life, Ardashir Rustampur did not marry, did not do anything. They always stayed in that restaurant and they worked, and everything that he made contributed. The Baha'i Center in Delhi, Haziratul Quds, is mainly bought by his contribution. Many other places, it is contribution. When he was 80 years old in 1980, two of the counselors of India, they would go to, counselors of Asia, they would go to Hyderabad. I met them in Delhi. I told them that there was a Baha'i couple in Australia that they had married, and as a gift, as a token of gratitude to their wedding, I hope they are still married, by the way. So they gave that, they gave it a ticket send this ticket expense to us. They said they wish that we invite Ardashir Rustampur to come and see the temple, because he was 80 years old at that time, and we were expecting, he was sick, we were expecting that he will die. In fact, he died a few years later. So I asked these counselors that they go to Hyderabad, tell to Ardashir Rustampur, we sent him some gifts and things like that, photographs and all of that. And then temple was just a structure still under just a skeleton and all of that. Now, we asked him, they wrote to me, and they later on also, those counselors have given talk and they have mentioned that. They went to him. He said, they told me that it took 10 minutes for him to come down from the staircase to open the door, because he cannot walk properly and he cannot afford, he never spent $1 on himself. He never get a servant or help. He does everything, cooking, everything for himself. So he said, they came and then we went up, and he's lay down on his bed because that was maximum energy that he had for that day. And then they were talking, and they told him that you have this ticket, and Mr. Sahba has promised that he will send a young, energetic boy to carry you, to help you, to take you everywhere, and you come to India, we welcome you, and you will see everything, and we turn you back to your city. And they told me that he asked them, is all the money for the temple collected now? Before that, he said to them that, he's almost dying. He's very sick, and he says, you know why I'm not dying? He said, because somebody owes me some money. I am going to leave till I get that money and contribute to the faith. Then I will die. But I want to do that. Anyhow, then they told him this. He said that, is it that the cost of the temple is all paid and there is no need for any money? They said, no, still building is under construction and they're raising fund and all of that. Then he said he took from under his pillow, he took a photograph of the temple and he showed to us, and he said, I sleep on this. I don't need to see it. And he said, that money should be given to the temple for construction. So that was his last contribution to the temple. And now, we have 10 minutes. I want in 10 minutes, these 10 minutes to ask you, think about these two stories that I told you, last time stories and this story. 400 years ago, Baha'u'llah designated a piece of land. God designated a piece of land. 120 years ago, he sent a young boy, 10 years old slave, to go and make money for its land. He designated the land to be green zone so that nothing will be built there. Otherwise, we didn't have it. It was just packed with rubbish now. At the middle of desert of Lut of Iran, he gave me inspiration at the age of 5 to become an architect with one dream, to build a temple. He inspired Dr. Mohajer to force me, when I was 24 years old, to participate in this submission, which otherwise I would have not done it. He sent 2 simple villagers of India to come and talk to me about the lotus. He motivated Baha'is of the world and Baha'is of India that have never afforded any money for their own local plans. For your information, all the money of all of the community of India, all of the budget of the faith for years and years came from Iran, from the Baha'is of Iran that were like a guardian of India. They were in charge of financial situation of India. Because he didn't want money of the temple from only rich people, because you see, if few rich people have paid this and all of that, so then where is the hand of Baha'u'llah visible? He chose the worst people, the poorest people, most unexpected people to do things. And then because he didn't want all of the money of the Temple of India comes only from Iran, so many things happened. The entire budget of the entire money of the friends in Iran was blocked. They could not send $1 as contribution to India. And we built a temple with money that came, but right at that time, raised all of the Baha'is of the world that in the past they would not contribute, including the Baha'is of India, to contribute. The largest contribution of the temple came from the Baha'is of India. Right in that museum that I told you right now, we have kept the coupons, 1 rupee coupons, the photograph of the temple written on that 1 rupees, and people would buy it. It's not photograph, it's like a ticket on paper. They would buy a ticket, and we had $1, $1. A hill of those coupons are at the temple, so that all the people that they come and they say, who has paid for this money, they will see that those coupons there. And 250, right because the temple was built at the heart of the persecution of the Baha'is of Iran. And right at that time, House of Justice wrote to us that the glory and majesty of this temple will be in sharp contrast with the sad events in the cradle of the faith in Iran. And we had 250 martyrs at that time that they gave their blood, so that blood brought majesty and glory and fame to our temple, so that a building that is only $10 million looks like, go and ask and find out what was the cost of what are the cost of the other temples, or what is happening. All of this is because of that he gave, because of the blood of the martyrs. This is word of beloved guardian. He says all the success that is happening in the world is blood of the martyrs of Iran. And that blood of the martyrs of Iran that paid for, the Baha'is of the prison of Iran at the time of persecution. They worked in the prison. They collected money. They sent that money through a special channel to India. And it came to me. And we built the greatest name of the temple, the jewel of the lotus, right at the heart of the temple, from that money contribution they contributed in the name of the martyrs of Iran. And that is right at the things. And now, when you think about this is the way that you see the hand of Baha'u'llah in everything related to that temple. House of Justice, in a message to the world, in a message to the National Assembly of India that I have, wrote that Temple of India is single most outstanding teacher of the Baha'i faith, that singly alone is teaching more than all other Baha'i institutions together. And in fact, so far we have had almost more than 150 million people that have visited the temple, and God knows how many million have seen the temple in media and in magazines and in other places. And really, when you look at these stories, you think to yourself that really some things are meant to be. Some things are written. And I am 100% sure that Temple of India is one of such things, that we were all tools and really instruments to serve, but really the hand of Baha'u'llah did everything that was in that place. Our next